and knowledge acquisition theories. So now, let's proceed to learning. Learning is a relatively permanent change in one's behavior as a result of interactions in the environment. It is also an acquisition through maturation, experience new knowledge, skills, and attitudes that will enable the learner make better, more adequate reactions, response, and adjustment to new situations. And also, learning encourages the ability to do something efficiently with the help of available resources so that you can reach your goals. The importance of learning is that it helps the individual to acquire the necessary skills through learning and knowledge so that he can achieve his set goals. Next is the learning theory. Learning theory this refers to any of the proposals put forth to explain changes in behavior or produced by a practice as opposed to other factors. And also are abstract frameworks that describe how knowledge is received and perceived during the learning experiences. Next is the behavioristic theory. This theory emphasizes that behaviors is mostly learned through conditioning and reinforcement, such as rewards and punishment. I have here an example of behavioristic theory. Example of behavioristic theory is teacher reward their class or certain students with a party or special treat at the end of the week for good behavior throughout the week. That's an example of behavioristic theory. Next is the classical conditioning theory. Also known as Pavlovian conditioning, a process of learning through association and was discovered by Ivan Petrovich Pavlov. A Russian sociologist, Ivan Pavlov, first discovered classical conditioning when he ran an experiment in which he rang a bell every time he fed a group of dogs. And also Pavlov showed that classical conditioning leads to learning by association. Watson and Rayner showed that phobias can be learned through classical conditioning in the Little Albert experiment. And also, classical conditioning theory that a subject can be conditioned to respond differently to a previously neutral stimulus if the neutral stimulus is paired up with any other stimulus that creates the required response. So, the example of classical conditioning theory is here. Whenever you come home wearing a baseball cap, you take your child to the park to play. So, whenever your child sees you come home with a baseball cap, he is excited because he associated your cap with a trip to the park. Next is the stimulus. Stimulus, this is something that causes our reactions, especially interest, arousal, or energy. As we can see in the first picture, touching a hot kettle. So there is the response here in the first example is withdrawing a hand due to the heat. So and the second picture is bad smell. The response here in the second example is cover your nose. Next is stimulus generalization. It is the tendency for the conditioned stimulus to evoke similar responses after the response has been conditioned. So in the stimulus generalization, the example is if a child was taught how to use the potty on only one toilet, his ability to go potty in different toilet in another environment will be demonstrate stimulus generalization. So next is the unconditioned stimulus. Unconditioned stimulus, this refers to that unconditionally, naturally, and automatically triggers a response. Again, unconditioned stimulus, this refers to that unconditionally, naturally, and automatically triggers a response. So here are the examples of unconditioned stimulus. First is your cat running to its bowl whenever it smells food. So the unconditioned stimulus here is the scent of food. or the smells of food. So in the second example is pollen from grass and flowers cause you to sneeze. So the unconditioned stimulus here is the pollen. And the third one is the cutting up an onion makes your eyes water. So the unconditioned stimulus here is the onion. The onion causes your eyes water. Next is the unconditioned response. Unconditioned response. This is an action that is elicited naturally. It is an unlearned response that occurs naturally in reaction to the unconditioned stimulus. And also natural reaction to something that happens without behavioral modification. So example for this is salivating. So the unconditioned response in salivating is the sour taste. Again, the example of unconditioned response is the salivating. So the unconditioned response in salivating is the sour taste. The second one example is twitching your leg. The unconditioned response in twitching your leg is the doctor tapping on your knee. This next is neutral stimulus. So neutral stimulus does not inactivate any specific response but can effectively promote learning when used along with an unconditioned stimulus. And also a sound or a song is a perfect example of neutral stimulus. So example of neutral stimulus is the sound of a squeaky door opening may initially be a neutral stimulus. Again, the sound of a squeaky door opening may initially be a neutral stimulus. If that sound is repeatedly paired with an unconditioned stimulus, such as you're feeding your cat, that sound will eventually come to trigger a change in your cat's behavior. And also once an association has been formed, your cat may react as if it's being fed every time it hears the squeaky door open. So again, as we can see, a good example is a song is a perfect example of neutral experiment of, or example of neutral stimulus. So that's all. Thank you.